woman who identifies as a libertarian, but I have also put people away, both for drug charges and tax evasion charges and a whole bunch of other felonies, bigger and smaller. Let me just introduce our organization, and then I'll introduce my fellow speakers. They'll can do that themselves. Ladies of Liberty Alliance, the network of independent libertarian women leaders through their careers or personal endeavors, are dedicated to spreading the ideas of individual liberty and a free society. Our mission is to educate and empower other women leaders in our communities and the liberty movement. And what we really are trying to battle this shortage of women in liberty movements around the globe and create an empowered network for all libertarian women leaders engaged in promoting these ideas throughout each and every LOLA chapter. As I said, my name is Nitzan. I am currently a police investigator. I've also been a DA. A lot of people do it the other way around, but I am DA, meaning district attorney in Israel, also was a special prosecutor in a few government branches. Of course, a lawyer by profession, also a criminologist. And now I'll let my fellow panelists introduce themselves. Alejandra, you want to go first?
Okay, my name is Alejandra. I am Colombian, and through my life, I've just been dedicated to data analysis for marketing purposes, PR purposes, and I've been a Lady of Liberty since 2019. I identify myself as a classical liberal, and yeah, that's pretty much from me.
Claudia, want to go?
So, hello everyone. My name is Claudia. I'm from Portugal. I am a UX designer in this life. In my past life, I was a physical education teacher. I identify as something between the classical liberal and the minarchist libertarian, because today the word liberal means something closer to the left, which I don't quite like it. So that's why I tend to identify more as a minarchist libertarian these days.
Totally. We should also have a panel about language and the way we use it. And
Yeah.
it's difficult to
Definitely.
self-identify. Okay, wanna welcome everybody participating. For technical reasons, you guys are not online on video, but if you have any questions, you can just write them down in the chat and we'll answer them later. There will be a time for questions from the audience. So hi, I see new people joining. So we're just gonna get really into it. We were talking about some of the series about presenting, portraying the characters of powerful women in these in the drug cartels. For example, the recent Netflix series Griselda. And we have well, some of us have watched it, some of us have watched, maybe others like it. Not all documentaries, or some of them are more storytellings, but all of them portray these women as powerful women and as women in a man's world. But do you think these series present an accurate representation of reality, especially of maybe like the places you have been to in the States, how they portray Colombia, for example, and the life in it?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting question in the way that, well, reality is always going to be different to these purposes. But regarding to the fact that if it's good or not to have these women as representatives of powerful individuals in a men's world, let's call it, I will say that I understand why this series and narco series and all of this exist because there's a market for it. But I consider we shouldn't watch it. And we were talking before about it, like how this sometimes transmit the culture of like easy money and how to get rich fast, and even perpetrating crimes and killing others and affecting society, etc. So I think it's very prejudicial for like culture, and especially for Colombian culture, because you are submerged in that environment, so you can see how it goes, and you can be involved in these very bad businesses that are going to affect you and your family, your life, and then, well, definitely the country. So I don't like to watch this kind of series, and I don't consider it's correct to produce them.
You would
But
rather
I am sorry.
would you rather they didn't exist, the series
Yes, but
altogether?
yes, but they're gonna exist. So they're gonna exist because there's people interested in knowing what happens here. But I think they're very prejudicial because they promote this fast money uh, earning way for Colombians, which perpetrates violence in the future. So I don't consider it's correct. And also, well, yeah, that's my comment regarding to this series.
Thank you. Do you have anything to comment on this issue, Claudia?
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't see the series, but about what Alejandra just said, I understand that a series that shows that shows, and probably for my understood, tends to romanticize the question of drugs in Colombia. For what I understood, of course, it's not a nice thing to see, but these things will be always be produced, and
Yeah.
we it's better, like, my point is, it's not because of you want it to end that it will end the problem in real life, because in real life the problem will always exist. And I have a strong opinion about not forbidding this kind of stuff just because it speaks about a reality that I don't like. I think that in the end probably will have a good effect, because people will see that romanticized reality, and will start to asking themselves some questions about it. I believe.
Yeah.
I would like to add something that regarding to what Claudia said, because it's true you cannot forbidden, but the production of these kind of movies, you can see it as how the society can degrade, or when you're having economic problems, like how this business become like so attractive. And you can see it also like in Spain. Now you produce more and more series about big cartels that operates in Europe, and how these people make a lot of money and promoting that. So it's not regarding that they're not going to exist, but it's a consequence of an existing problem. And I think it promotes a wrong culture in society, which is promoting this fast money, even if it's legal or not. The drug businesses, I think, culturally, if affects more than it helps.
Well, usually in these shows, you either have which is now more popular, the criminal who's the protagonist, or you also have the hero cop, or sometimes both, like in The Wire, where they show both perspectives. But that's what we're actually debating today, is maybe the entire problem is the way as a society we approach this. Like, there has to be a cop versus drug dealer fight, and when the only resort to violence, and the violence keeps getting worse and worse, and it hasn't been working for many years. So what I want to ask you next is, what are the negative implications that the war on drugs have had on Colombia and its population, from your perspective?
Yes, well, many ways. it have affected, but I think it's Colombia. It's like guilty of having the perfect weather to produce the most consumed drug in the world, no? So it's like Colombia produces the 70% of the cocaine that is consumed in the world. So that says a lot. And the drug on wars, of course, it has had negative implications, especially because it has served terrorist group to have streams of income that can compete to the state way like budget. So in the 90s, we have these guerrillas and armed groups that had like the same budget than the Colombian state to fight against like each other. So these terrorist groups were promoting communism and extreme right ideas, and they had all the money from the trafficking cocaine to buy guns and bombs, etc. So that's one way, because it was illegal, this market. They could make such a huge profit that could compete to the income of the Colombian national state. But I understand why the drugs are illegal, because first of all, drugs have been quite recently around us, especially like hard cocaine or methamphetamines and all these drugs. So society is not, we don't know how to manage it. Alcohol has been around for millenniums, so it's like socially accepted, but these other drugs are not. And what's happening with the drug war is that these products are becoming more and more and more concentrated, so they can be transported easily, logistics made easier the transportation. So it has become a very, very profitable business for terrorist groups, especially in my country.
Yeah, internationalized shipping has made it it's extremely easy to traffic large amounts of drugs. But it also, technology moves both ways. The drug dealers have it, but also
Yes.
police has it. And I know we can track sometimes packages before they even leave. So I mean, I'm not going to tell you all our secrets, but I mean, both sides have technology. But the major thing is from the 1980s, we've had militarized technology. Like you spoke about this. I mean, the war extended to terror and used weapon like army grade weapons. And this is for both of you actually. Do you think this militarized aspect on the war of drugs, they maybe are the main cause for its failure? Or was it always destined to fail? Because governments have spilled billions of funds into weaponizing police and even having military units of all kinds of fight these cartels, but they're still in power and it's not really working. So Claudia,
Okay.
Sure.
both of you.
Yeah, sure. I think there is a moral view of it and an economical one. Because, first of all, the line is too thin how dangerous it is to allow the state telling me what is good for me, what they are going to next. Makes me wonder. When drugs are prohibited, it creates, of course, a black market where drugs are traded illegally, which leads to a lack of regulation and control over the quality and even the safety of the products, which will result in potentially more dangerous and harmful drugs for the consumers. And in additional, when concerns to the economical point of view, the prohibition drives up the drug prices due to this artificial scarcity and the risk associated with this illegal traffic. So in the end, of course, I think it's will aggravate the problem. Sometimes the thing that seems to be more moral and more correct, the authoritarian way often doesn't work. This is a proof for me.
Yes, I agree with Claudia. Like this war was like destiny to fail. Um, so I understand why they started it, because it's harmful and the drugs are harmful, and it's like a moral way to protect people to hurt themselves. But at the end, everyone does what they want to do, especially with their body. So if they want to consume drugs, they're gonna find a market that sells it. So that's why we have this huge market, black market of cocaine, and even when it's forbidden in like all the countries. Um, and yeah, so maybe we should approach this topic from other perspective as a health issue. We have to have other tools to fight against drug consumption, and not like the production of it itself.
Yeah, so you're both actually talking about health regulations instead of criminal regulation, instead of just making sure if the government has to get involved, it's to make it safer and not to punish the people pursuing the drugs, and not to constrict it.
Yes,
Yes,
because
and giving more tools, and investing all this money in maybe fighting against the addiction that people have. I don't know, in other ways, in other technologies that we haven't explored, but more in the health section than in the production, which is where it's focused right now, production and logistics.
in the end, people will do whatever they want to do. So when you are forbidding it, you are just creating a monster. This is what we are talking about, and my country is a good example of how the liberalization, I'm sorry, works. But we will talk about it later.
Yeah, no, we can talk about it now. I mean, it's not,
Oh.
it doesn't have to be, no, because like, how do you see the medicalization of addiction? How is it viewed in Portugal? Like, I think that they maybe see it more as a disease, addiction, than as a crime. And from that, the full legalization of most known drugs stemmed. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yes. We had a law since 2001 that, in practical terms, it changed the way you look at the issue. So the consuming illicit substances remains punishable. My English today, my English is horrible. So consuming substances remaining punishable by law, but it's no longer treated as a criminal offense. So you don't go to the courts, but instead it's considered like a social infraction. Of course, we are speaking until a certain amount of the substance. Um, so as to speak, consuming illegal drugs is still against the law, but it's treated like this social problem and not a criminal problem. So people don't look at you like you are marginal, you are a criminal. People tend to look at you like someone who really needs help. So what was changed here in Portugal was that the government uh, creates some committees for dissuading the drug addiction, and where it my English today is absolutely horrible. I'm so sorry. These committees, called CDTs, they were created to work along the special law enforcement services, and they have like big teams that listen to people who are involved, and they will make an evaluation about the situation of the person in question, and then they will apply the measures, and it could be like helping you, guiding you through the most correct treatment, uh, helping, or if it is something more serious, they actually can make you do some community service or something like that. But for me, the biggest change is really in what concern the way you look to the person who used the drug. It's not a criminal, it's someone, when the drug is really hard, it's someone who needs help. So for me, it's the more significant thing, and therefore the crimes related to drug consumption, they decreased. So it worked, I believe.
So yeah, so you also diverted funds from from fighting the drug dealers to rehabilitating the drug users, and it worked in decreasing criminal acts. So that's even those associated with the drug trade. So that's really uh, proves it pretty much that that may be a route to solution, to finding, if we can find one, because you both were correct that people will probably do what they want to do with their own bodies. And once we have these substances, and there are more and new ones every day, like every country has a list of unlawful drugs, but it gets longer and longer every year or every a few years, because they keep coming up with more new synthetic drugs hitting the streets, which are then legal for a while. And so yeah, also of course we have the old ones that will never go away. Um, so yeah, so I wanted to ask you, Alejandra, how do you feel about your hometown having this reputation of mostly being associated with drug dealings, criminal activity, when in truth I heard it's quite an innovative city. It has a lot going for it. Maybe if you want to expand, use this platform to expand about that.
Yes, I mean, I just accept it, there's nothing I can do to change this reputation. So just accept it, I don't like it, of course, because no one likes to be associated with with this war. But it is the reality. I mean, we produce the 70% of the cocaine that is consumed in the world. It's impossible to not have that kind of reputation. There's one day someone made such a funny joke for me. He said Colombia is known for creating this beverage that all the world desires, coffee and cocaine, that gives energy to the world. So I just take it in the fun way. I understand. There's also some other areas that I am interested about that are kind of in the limit that too much you should consume it or not. I really like the Second World War and all the history, so it's part of life. Um, and yes, Medellin is a very innovative city. In 2018, the city won the prize for being the one of the most innovative cities. In 30 years, it passed from being the most dangerous city to one of the most coolest cities in the entire world. Mm, yeah, the place where everyone wants to go to see what's happening there. A lot of digital nomads, a lot of businesses are being created there, but also because the city has all this social capital that maybe is not that mentioned in this series, which is the house of very important big companies in Latin America, insurance companies, energy producing companies, construction companies. All of them have their headquarters in Medellin. So of course that attracts a lot of talent, a lot of capital, social and economic capital. So it's a very beautiful city, Medellin itself, and the country too, but also it has, it's still a country in war. So you cannot expect the security of, I don't know, what city of Poland, which is a very safe country, with the security of Colombia.
Well,
No?
it's
But it's
relatively
very
safe.
nice.
I think the
Yes,
world's going crazy. I mean, Poland isn't that safe anymore. It's true. I mean, they have had
exactly.
their share of, but like, I mean, I'm Israeli, so obviously, yeah, I know what it's like to have a bad
Exactly. It's like
reputation.
Israel.
But also, people think you're a badass, don't you? Don't
Yes.
they? Like, it's also
Yes.
there's that. So like, if we're all
So
fighters,
it's like
yeah,
Israel, like it's a
yeah.
country in war, but you are safe, you know? So
You
like
have your
for
life, and it's a country at war that's also very innovative, and we both export more than drugs and weapons. More,
yes.
there's more to it. Yeah, so it's important point getting that across. Yeah, I'm used to it. So I see, yeah, you're dealing with it too.
Yes, but it's normal. It's just everyone has so much to learn about, and but we start from one side, and people start learning about Colombia from the drug war. So I understand it.
Yeah. So you guys maybe heard of it, but Germany is on its path to legalization too. Did you hear about
Yes,
that?
I
It's
saw
pretty new.
the news on the Financial Times.
Yeah. So, do you know about any other, maybe Claudia, do you know about any other European countries that are just taking an example from Portugal and maybe want to implement some of um, the decriminalization law or some of the rehabilitation methods you guys are using?
To be completely honest with you, I'm not aware. I think that maybe Spain could be in the path to do something quite similar. In fact, I think this is one of the very few matters in which Portugal is ahead. And some days ago, I was taking a course, and people actually gave the Portuguese example as a good practice in what the war of drugs concerned. And I was like, whoa. I was hearing you girls speaking about the security, and I was thinking to myself that in Portugal, the drug thing, it's not even a thing.
Mm.
It's like we don't think about it, we don't live that reality. Actually, at the moment, there is a small problem, and I speak small because considering the situation in Colombia, it's a small problem of people consuming drugs in public in one of the principal streets of Lisbon. In fact, I went through there every day when I was to my old job, and I actually saw people in the middle of the street consuming drugs, and more than that, people were like peeing and everything you can imagine in the middle of the street. And the government resolution for that was actually isolating the bridge, because there was a bridge and people were over the bridge doing their drugs, and the local government just isolated that, and that's it. You finish the problem. Of course you don't, but just that small thing, just the thing that you actually can see people consuming drug, and everyone is looking at it, is a problem for Portuguese people, because we are not used to it. The most contact that you have with drugs, and to be honest, we don't consider it almost a drug, is like weed. People go to a night out or something, chilling with friends, and use a cigarette of weed or something like that, but we almost don't consider it a drug. It's so it's not that common, but it's like you order a vodka or something. We don't look at that again in a criminal way. Things turn a little bit worse when we are talking about the hard drugs, because hard drugs are quite rare, and it's like a taboo theme. um, but again, it's not a reality that we see every day, and I think we can thank that law, that 2001 law, this thing uh, turn it in a non-issue. It's a non-issue in the Portuguese society. So I think the rest of Europe should not be scared of doing the same, because sometimes you speak, I at least speak with the people that are more conservative, and they feel scared. They feel scared that if we are going to legalize it, it will turn into a bunch of people with a drug addiction, which is not true. And our main job, I consider, is to again show that sometimes the most moral and at the first view easy way to deal with the problem, it's not the most effective one, once again.
And it's not easy. It's not easy
Yes,
when you have
it's
drug
not easy.
wars in the streets.
Yes.
But also, you made a good point. A lot of countries, a lot of people also, but a lot of countries differentiate between weed, marijuana, and its and all its products, and other sorts of drugs, which are considered harder drugs because they're way more addictive. For example, cocaine, of course, heroin, anything from the poppy seed, really. Um, and and a lot of countries, they did legalize, like a few countries in the United States. Also, we decriminalized a certain amount of weed that you can carry and not be prosecuted. So a lot of countries went like the extra mile towards marijuana, but they did not go full length like you guys did in Portugal. They didn't have the guts to just say we should legalize it all, and maybe that will actually reduce drug consumption. And you're telling me like it became a social taboo. Um, it's not criminalized, but there's a difference. Like if you have a glass of wine, or if you maybe even smoke a joint, but it's not the same if you use the hard stuff like heroin or cocaine.
Yes, yes, no, it's not the same thing at all in people's view. I think that someone who smoke weed, it's not even a question. It's like for older people, maybe, but for the young ones, it's like, okay, it's not really my thing. Or no, yeah, it's sometimes it's my thing. I speak for myself as a person, a sports related person. It's not my thing. I never even had a regular cigarette because
Mm.
it's my way of being. It's my preference, but it's the most normal thing. It's my best friend, it's next to me and he wants to smoke a joint. Okay, maybe I kind of not feel that comfortable and just leave the room, or uh, but in what concerns to the hard drugs, the stigma, it's huge. It's like you don't want to be around them. You don't want people that are addicted in your life. If you have a problem with a relative, a boyfriend, a lover, something like that, that is involved with the hard drugs, and you open your heart and share with a friend, all all your friends will say to you, just leave it, just drop it. It will bring you a bunch of problems. And what people usually tell you is that that kind of people don't want to help. They will drag you into a hole and just get away. So that because of that, when we are here, when we hear about the hard drugs, it's panic. It's we get really frightened, and they are just, we look at them really as the sick ones. And of course there are treatments and stuff, but it's a lot of stigma. I think in the end, the people tend to feel, the ones who really want help tend to feel abandoned, something like that.
Do you freeze?
No. I
Oh.
just
You paused. Okay.
it's because of
Well,
the motorcycle outside.
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's really true. Like if you a lot of people when they can ask for help and not be afraid of maybe being prosecuted or losing their jobs or going to jail, then they can seek that help at an earlier stage and maybe not fall deeper into the drug system. And it's really nice to see it that it actually worked for Portugal also to reduce drug use and to reduce drug dealings inside the country. A lot of small countries like Portugal, I think, are afraid of if they pursue full legalization, they might become traffic countries, like countries in between countries, and that did happen to Amsterdam in its first stages of legalization. They became a trafficking country, and not only for weed or marijuana, also weapons trafficking, human trafficking even, because the same cartels and the same crime organizations are usually in charge of all of it. So it's I mean, it's very nice to see how a small country like Portugal made it work. I do think larger countries might have to come together. Like now, I'm very happy about Germany because it's a big, influential, rich country that can maybe make it happen throughout the EU. If we do it together, then no one country will be singled out as a trafficking country. Maybe Alejandra, because it's like you said in the beginning, like a lot of it is also just geographical. Like you guys, if you can grow it easier than other places, then yeah, it's gonna be trafficked out. For example, I mean, we're not a growing country, but we are surrounded by some of them, Egypt, Lebanon, big growing countries.
Yes, well, for Colombia, it's always like hard to set this discussion. But as you said, if some other bigger countries start legalizing like drugs, of course, it's going to influence us and benefits us. But I think Colombia, like the point to say, like, for example, legalize cocaine, I think we're quite far from it, like to establish that discussion. But starting with weed is good. Also in Colombia, there's some legal projects, like projects of laws to legalize marijuana recreational purposes. I think that's the term how you will say it. They have been voted. The senators have been voting this law 2 times, and they have passed the law in the Congress because there's still this social bad perception about marijuana. So, but we are still in the way, like more and more you can see in the Colombian society people talking about, okay, marijuana is not that bad. Actually, alcohol can be more harmful. So we are also in that discussion. And as you mentioned, the fact that the United States, almost 48 states have legalized marijuana, Canada, other like countries in the Americas, that's gonna influence the agenda. Also Germany, and going in this path of changing from a drug war perspective to a health issue perspective.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yes.
Do you guys know anything about the similarities and differences between the Brazil drug trade and the Colombian drug trade, if any? Because there are some.
I actually don't know. Don't know what are the differences. I do know there's a lot of trafficking between Colombia and Brazil, especially because we have a huge border that, well, it's the Amazon rainforest, so there's no borders, there's no too much control, so it's pretty much a free border between Colombia and Brazil. So a lot of the cocaine that is produced here, it's exported by other countries like Ecuador, Venezuela, Brazil. But exactly the differences, I'm not aware of.
Claudia?
Oh, I'm not. I'm
Oh,
far away. I'm not really aware of what is going on. I know that Brazil have a lot of drug problems. A fond friend of mine in the other day sent me an WhatsApp about a place called Cracolandia, which literally means the land of crack, and it called
It's in Sao
me
Paulo.
in São Paulo. Yeah. Yes, I never heard about it. Again, for me as Portuguese, and as I told you, it's like it's a non-issue in our society. Seems something that came out from a movie. It's like really this is happening. It's a reality so far away, and I find it so bizarre. As you can see, the luxury, I found it bizarre, that I want to learn more about it. And without question, they are facing a problem, and the problem will tend to be more serious, considering the politics and everything. We know how the things work, and usually when politics put their hands, things tend to get worse. So unfortunately, I don't see the situation getting better, both for Latin America and Europe as well, since the uh, extreme right movements growing in here. People are looking in a different way to this issue, even here in Portugal, which, as we know, the law actually was a great success, but they want to get it more restricted again, which is a huge mistake, if you ask me.
really? In what way do they want to get it to more
People people
regulation or what?
No, the right wing forces, they look at the things in a different way. They think you should criminalize people who consume it, and I can give you the example of that I talked to you some minutes ago, of the people that are consuming it in the middle of one of the main streets of Lisbon. This issue grew to a point where the extreme right told, like, we don't want this, we need to criminalize, we need to forbid all kind of drugs. And I enrolled in a discussion on Twitter because of that. Because when you say, look, this is not the way you do it, it will have the opposite effect that you want it to have. People tend to point the finger on you and say that, no, so you are a leftist, you want this to grow, you don't see that the drugs destroy families, and you said, no, I know that, and that's why I'm showing you that forbidding it's not the way. You will just create a black market, and once again, you explain the things. You will create a black market that makes the product more valuable, and you will create underground problem instead of a visible one. I think we can speak about criminalize um, when it interferes with your freedom. Like if someone is under a drug state, or as we do with alcohol, and it interferes with my freedom. If the people go and harass me or harm me in any way, of course it should have a criminalization. But it is already happening. If someone tents again my freedom, of course it will face a punishment. So but unfortunately, I think that with the upcoming elections, we will watch that occur in Portugal. But therefore, we'll be here to analyze it over again. I hope not, because it will
That's
be
interesting.
coming back a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually interesting because it's it might be a very interesting case study. I hope it doesn't have to be for the people, but it will be very interesting to watch what happened, to follow it. It is a problem with optics sometimes. Like even if you show the numbers have gone down and it's better, and we all know black markets drive prices up, the second you see like junkies on the street, people get scared, they want to end the problem, and the easiest way, they're saying it's not that easy, but people think the easiest way is to just send the police at it, send someone to arrest them because they don't want them out of sight, out of mind. And it's not the best way to deal with this problem. Another thing, we're all members of a women's organization. And how do you see the role women play in this? Because we started talking about Griselda Blanco, but actually, most women in the drug trade are not the bosses. Like most of them, maybe are traffickers, maybe even drug mules, and usually like getting dragged into this by more powerful men or sometimes husbands or boyfriends exploiting them. um, Drug trafficking does always go hand in hand with, as we said, human trafficking, prostitution rings, violence against women. These things are all tied because the criminals that currently are in charge are all tied up. Like the heads are all tied up. If you have a trafficking route, then you use it for more than one thing. You use it for weapons, you use it for prostitutes. So, how do you see that problem, like as women, if it affects your opinion at all of legalizing drugs?
Aleja, first.
Yeah, you can go
Yeah.
first.
I think why is it important for women to know about this problem and what are the consequences maybe of this war or and the roots? It's because we are the ones who educate, no? Usually, in average, women are the ones who educate next generation. So if we are well informed, if we know what is harmful, it's going to be easier to do this transition from a society that consumes to a society that consumes less, let's say it. So it's gonna facilitate the health issue perspective that we want to have for the drug war. So that's why I consider women are key, because we educate in general the next generation. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Claudia, anything to
I,
add?
th- I think it all starts with the education, the moral values that you have for yourself. I can share with you, and I have no problem at all in saying this, that I fell in love with a person who was with a drug problem. I didn't know that at the time, of course, and I can tell you that what we talk about in when we are in politics, and our convictions is one thing, and watching it happening in practice, it's other thing. And you feel so mad, and you want so bad, like, I want everything of this to be forbidden. I want to extinct the drugs from the world. Why I'm in this hell? Why I have to go through this? And it's quite easy when you care for someone which is really involved in with this problem, um, to be dragged to that life, because these people tend to sometimes drag you to that kind of problems that you mentioned, like prostitution or something, because they will do a lot to continue um, uh, to continue funding their addiction. So I think the first thing, it's families educate their daughters in order to be stuck to their own values, their own convictions, and yourself first. You need to look at yourself first. And speaking as a woman organization member, I think that we can have an easy way to make our message spread to the other woman, and it's quite the same that we already do it with other subjects. Sometimes what seems to be the most easy way to deal with things, forbidding and put more states on it, seems the best solution, the most moral one, but often, not often, always will create a bigger problem. So in resume, educate your daughters to be strong to their convictions and beliefs, and spread the word to another woman about the most authoritarian measures will not fix anything.
That's an extremely good point, because a lot of these problems we see should be solved by education, but legislators don't see it that way. They think it should be solved by
State.
criminalization, because criminalization is easier and it gets more votes. And but you just have to trust the public to educate, and you need to give them like the funds and the ability to be self-educated and to pass it on to their children. So our time is almost up. We do have a question from the audience. Um, Someone saying she feels conflicted because on one hand she's so inspired but by powerful women like Griselda and all these drug bosses and on TV, but on the other hand she then remembers that they are actually awful criminal who killed people. So that it's also it's more of a point than a question. But if you have anything to comment, like really the duality of it, that it's
Yes, I think we shouldn't feel like inspired by this kind of people. There's so many good role models of women like all around there that we can take. It's like getting inspired by Pablo Escobar for being this powerful man challenging the state, or like by any other criminal, you know. There's so many other examples, and we should focus our attention in those other instead of like admiring criminals. That yes, they were powerful, but at the end of the day, they were criminals killing people and degrading um, other people's lives. Yeah, like that's my perception. Quite radical, but I think it's correct.
Claudia.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I did not see the series, as I told you before, but I tend to agree that, first of all, what we think when we think about a powerful woman, I think about a woman who is stuck to their own principles and values, and wants to do what is correct. So for me, it's quite hard look at someone, even in fiction, and call it a strong woman. Let's say, for me, someone who is involved with illegal practices cannot be someone that I will look up to, and it's like, oh, I want to be like that, such powerful. No, for me, powerful is someone who brings the the good, who who I look to and think, wow, I want to be like that when I grow up at the age of 31. So it's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, it's not like they have very good lives. I was just saying, like, when you get to know these people, usually they're very lame in person. Even murderers, even drug dealers, they live sad lives, always looking over their shoulder. They can't relax. Like when we were when I was in one of the searches we did in a drug family compound. So it was very much the garden was neglected, and just me and one of my partners, we were just talking about it, that it's neglected because they can't bring a gardener over because they don't trust anybody. Like you can't bring outsiders ever into this compound. Cameras everywhere, weapons everywhere, and it's very scary. They're always thinking someone is trying to murder them. So you can't even do something like get a maid or get a gardener. You can't trust anyone. So what does all the money do for you? Like, yeah, you have the fancy clothes, the fancy cars, you have millions of dollars, but you can't really have the true lifestyle when you're always looking over your shoulder, always afraid. Okay,
And
so
I'm
oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
No, no, go
I,
ahead.
I will I will say just that usually people will end in ruin because at the first moment you have money, but then you have to sell everything to continue the consumption. So it's a never-ending story. So it's always ruin, but forbidding it, it's not certainly the answer. Thank you.
Right. And also most a lot of the drug dealers, they don't always use, like for example, Griselda, they showed her using when she was panicking towards the end. But usually, a lot of drug dealers, they don't use drugs. A lot of people who own casinos, they don't gamble. They know how
Yeah.
to exploit other people who are weaker than they are, who have these difficulties, who have this sickness, but they don't want anything to do with it. So we have like a few more minutes if you have anything you want to ask me before we adjourn.
Yes, I just to mention, compliment what you were saying. Here in Colombia, we heard that Pablo Escobar always said, "We just export this, like this product, so we don't poison ourselves." Because that was like he thought that cocaine will poison the society. So yeah, the drug dealers usually sell the product, but don't consume it.
Yeah, because they know what it can do to
Yes,
people.
it breaks the society. And I think it's more like our discussions probably all tend to lead to if it's good or not, if it's moral or not. And probably all these products affect um, our families or cultures. So, how can we make our cultures or people around us and ourselves better? That should be the question that we should ask. Instead of like if it should be legal or not, but more what it's in our hands is to change in the social environment around us and the social agenda around us instead of the government saying what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, um when you try a solution and it doesn't work, and then you throw more money at it and it gets worse, then maybe it's not the right solution. I mean, maybe we
Exactly.
should try something else for a change. Okay, you each want like a sentence to finish, conclude. No. Okay, well, thanks. It was a very fun discussion for me. I hope you enjoyed it. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you
Thank
again
Thank
you.
you.
in the
Thank you
next
very much
panels.
for inviting me.
Of course.
Big pleasure.
Yeah, hope to see you someday in person.
Yes.
Soon. Sure.
Bye.
Sure.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
You too.